You all might be aware of the infamous Shuckle strategy, where Shuckle could use moves like Rollout and Ice Ball to hit astronomically high numbers, with their previous record sitting at 722 million damage using a complicated Ice Ball strategy. So the question remains, can that record finally be bested? Or the better question, how far will this record be decimated? Stick around and find out as I bash my head trying to solve complex math problems to figure out how broken really is Last Respects. And if you like what you see, feel free to leave a like and subscribe for more random nonsense. With that out of the way, let's get started. To get started with the strategy, let's first look over Last Respects, a move that alone got Houndstone banned to the Uber tier very quickly. On the surface it looks pretty weak, 50 base power. However, this attack gets stronger for every Pokemon of yours that gets knocked out by 50 BP. So if 5 of your Pokemon were to be knocked out, this attack would do 300 damage. Pretty nice, respectable, but nowhere near the 900 that Rollout can get up to. So how can we get Last Respects up to the insane numbers? The answer is simple. Let me introduce you to my friend Revival Blessing. For 1 PP you can revive a party member, but it is limited by the attack being only 1 PP. However, the Lepa Berry lets you restore the PP of said move. Now things are cooking. So if you were to say skill swap Harvest onto a Palmot, you can have an infinite revival string, and every time a Pokemon faints, it buffs the attack of Last Respects by another 50 BP. So congratulations, you now have an infinite combo, except the multiplier caps at 100 faints for a base power of 5050. Now we are cooking. To understand how we buff up, let's first take a look at a damage calculator to see how hard we hit. It is complicated, but to make things simple, we are focusing on a few attributes. As for the attack power in the formula, it's going to be 5050 thanks to Last Respects, and then also an additional bonus thanks to Helping Hand. The base attack at level 100 for Houndstone is 331, which gets multiplied thanks to huge power at ×2, and an additional ×4 multiplier thanks to having a +6 attack. For Ralts, we'll have at level 1 with 0 defense of IVs and EVs with a defense lowering nature. This coupled with a -6 to the defense will result with a defense stat of 1. Other attributes for damage is their weakness at ×2, how your item multiplies damage, with the metronome after using it 5 times caps out at a ×2 multiplier, which is the highest you can get with any item. Lastly is a buff from Power Spot, which will increase damage by 1.3, and then Glaive Rush, we'll get to that in a little bit. There's a couple of randomness in the setup, like low chance for a crit and the random rolls that factor in, but for these calculations, to make things simple, let's set them to maximum and have them unchanging. The final calculations will have some variance. We are playing with the complex formulas and big numbers, so there will be some discrepancies with how damage calculations go through, since things have to be very confusing and I don't think anyone really understands what's going on. For the setup, we'll be running 2 teams. Team A will be the Houndstone team, with the Houndstone with Last Respects holding the metronome, a Palmot with Revival Blessing spam, a Medicham with Skill Swap, Helping Hand with Pure Power, a Torkoal for Sunny Day spam, and 2 other mons just for fodder. As for Team B, we'll be rolling with the Ralts with metronome, you'll see in a bit, at level 1, defense lowering nature, etc., a Tropius for Harvest for Palmot, a Stonejourner for Power Spot for later, Oranguru for Instruct and Trick Room also for the later part of the strategy, and a couple of Throwmons just to fill out the team. The strategy is simple. Turn 1 Team A starts with Palmot and Medicham, Team B with Tropius and somebody else. Medicham skill swaps Tropius and itself, as for the other attacks doesn't matter as long as they don't go for each other's throats. On turn 2, Medicham skill swaps itself with Palmot, so Palmot has Harvest. After this, Medicham will switch out with Torkoal, and then begins the long kill cycle. Torkoal is done to refresh Drought, so that way Harvest will have a 100% activation rate, so that way you can continuously spam out the revivals. This will be done until 100 faints have been recorded to cap out Last Respects. After this is done, bring in Houndstone and start stacking up the Howls, meanwhile switch in Palmot to Medicham, and the foe will begin to switch in to Stonejourner and Ralts. Medicham will first skill swap onto Houndstone, so that way Houndstone gets Pure Power, and the Medicham skill swaps for Power Spot. Houndstone will continue to stack up the Howls, meanwhile Ralts will begin to debuff itself with defenses until it reaches -6 for that magical spot. After this is done, on the final turn, bring in Oranguru, Ralts will use Metronome whatever, Medicham will use Helping Hand, Oranguru re-instructs Medicham's Helping Hand, and then Houndstone mauls Ralts with a crit at maximum power with Last Respects. In the aftermath, we do a whopping 394,271,873 damage to poor little Ralts. There is some variance in the damage calculations, and to fix some conundrums, Helping Hand can only stack twice because of what we are about to do next, the highest damage possible in current Scarlet and Violet. So the thing that we ignored in the damage calculations is Glaive Rush. This is the signature move of Baxcalibur, where you use it, you will take double damage until the next time you use an attack. The reason we picked Ralts is because Ralts has access to Metronome. The attack, not the item. This is about to get very confusing. So let's just say by some random act of Arceus, Ralts manages to use Glaive Rush right before getting hit. That would mean the 400 billion damage will become larger. To be exact, the total now sits at a comfy 788,534,746 damage. But let's take this even further. As of current patch, this is the limit, at least from what I can think of and calculate on. To be exact, Houndstone is not the only Pokemon to learn Last Respects. Basculegion can also have access to Last Respects, but that is not available as of current patch of late January 23. However, once it is introduced, Basculegion can take this limit even further. Houndstone has a base attack of 101, meanwhile Basculegion male form has a base attack of 112. Using the same strategy as before, Basculegion can take this hit up to a whopping 845,719,118 damage onto poor little Ralts. Now it's time we get a little more creative. We are going to pretend that all the DLC of Scarlet and Violet magically has every Pokemon we need for these ridiculous strategies to be implemented, while sidestepping a touchy topic. There is even more options available, but there is one small problem in our strategy that limits us. We are currently only hitting for a ×2 weakness. Let's take this to a ×4. Small problem is that there's only 2 types weak to Ghost, and those are Psychic and Ghost, all of which are legendary Pokemon, and the lowest levels available is level 53, not level 1. However, Gourgeist is here to save the day. By becoming like every derelict mall in America, we can embrace the spirit of Halloween and use some trick-or-treating, so we can add a Ghost type to Ralts to be ×4 weak. Getting hit by a Last Respects will deal a whopping 1,961,438,237 damage, over twice the previous record. Let's cook up even more. Instead of Power Spot, this time we use a different ability. Let's pretend Cherrim is in Scarlet and Violet. As to why, I don't know, it's a terrible Pokemon. This will replace Power Spot on Stonejourner, so instead we can use a 1.5 multiplier instead of 1.3, and we have Torkoal for Drought as it is, so we can use Sunny Day ourselves. Now this gets the damage up to 1,951,659,504. That's hot. So we have hit Dumb Heights, destroyed the previous record. How much more can we go? Well, a Reddit user by MaleMC theorized a different strategy, this time using some skill swapping, guard swapping, and mimicry, thanks to swapping on Avalug's defense onto a Sudowoodo, mimicking Last Respects, leading to a supposed 3.7 billion damage output. There is one damage with that calculation though, and that is assuming you can get off 3 Helping Hands in a turn, which is actually impossible, because of Helping Hand and Glaive Rush. Helping Hand's damage only stacks for that turn, and Glaive Rush only lasts until the user's next action. So Ralts/Wigglytuff can only use Glaive Rush Roulette, and with Instruct only getting 2 Helping Hands off, which would lead to a grand total of 282 billion damage. This is still more than the Basculegion strategy, and this uses transfer only Pokemon also. But still, that is quite a whole lot more. However, this strategy is lacking inspiration. What if Shuckle were introduced in the DLC? Then we can take this grand total up to a whopping 3.38 billion using the same strategy as before, this time just using Shuckle instead of Avalug. So that is the cap and damage. Maybe. However, that is just in the current state of Pokemon. Looking back to the old Shuckle strategies, those utilizes triple battles to pull off the strategy. So why not use this in a triple battle to see how high we can take the damage? Well, I'm not going into team specifics because frankly my brain hurts enough of these calculations, I don't know if this is truly possible. But simply put, we're going to be using 2 Cherims with solar power, and the other team has 2 Orangurus, along with previous Sudowoodo and Ralts. What's a grand total with 4 Helping Hands instead of 2, and 2 Flower Gifts to buff it up even further. 11,000,000,000 392,468,128 damage, compared to the previous 721 million. That is nearly 16 times more damage, assuming I did my math correctly. I'm not for sure because of rounding issues. This is absolutely overkill, but I love it. Hopefully you all did too. Did I do my math correctly, or did I do something wrong? Or have you thought of another strategy? Feel free to leave it down below. And you all have a wonderful afternoon. This has been Orpheolus, and I'll see you all next time.